Well, good morning and welcome to Ask Mason. I'm very excited this morning. We're sitting down in the garage of the Mercy Regional Ambulance Service, or EMS. Have a special guest here today, Duke Dixon, the owner of Mercy, and you're new to Enid, kind of, sort of, right? You've been over here a lot lately, but I think, what was it, January the 29th, you told me, you guys?
December 29th was the official start date for Mercy. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah. And so you own it now, right?
Yeah, we're good. But like I say, we've probably spent the last 7-8 months in Enid, just going through the process and getting to know everybody. So it's been great. So, which has really helped once the 29th hit, that we already had the relationships established and we felt like we knew the area way better. So yeah, we've kind of embedded here for 6 months. We're going on right at 2 months now of service.
Yeah. So you and I get to see each other every month at our committee meetings and have got to know you a little bit. But before I go any farther about the service that you're providing, tell us a little bit about you and your company. I know you and your wife are partners on this,
right?
We
started in 2006 in Owasso, Oklahoma. Came from Texas, medical backgrounds, both in EMS and fire. You know, the traditional entrepreneurial story of, this will be easy, you know. Got an ambulance.
It's never as easy as it looks.
Had a Post-it note, wrote it down, like, yep, we have enough money in the bank. I think we were pretty broke the first 6 months and stayed that way the first 10 years, but that allowed us to develop our culture when we realized we didn't have any money. We didn't have the capital to compete with the big people. So that's where our, basically our mission statement is almost 2 words, customer service. It was free. You know, it's kind of like character. It didn't cost us anything. We had cheap uniforms, but we bought everybody irons, we tucked them in. You know, it's that first impression. So we had to focus on everything that didn't cost us anything. And we kind of rode that wave for the first, I would say 6, 7, 8 years. We had the volume, but we're really just figuring out how we wanted to do it and what we were doing. So we started out 1 or 2 ambulances and now we have about 50 in the fleet. Started out with 5 employees and, you know, 250, 280 now.
Wow.
On the employee side.
Wow. What people forget is you have to be staffed 24 hours a day.
Oh, it's just,
Yeah, so.
I mean, you're paying, you know, a lot of professions, maybe in your office or a bank or somewhere, that if a teller or someone called in, you're just short that day. That's okay. We'll just, instead of 3 tellers, we'll have 2. Well, not just us, but any ambulance. I mean, there's got to be 2 certified people in the front seat of those ambulances of 24 hours a day.
What does that mean, certified? Certified to?
Nationally registered EMT basic, EMT advanced, or a paramedic. And then some of our services that we offer in other areas even go up from there, where we'll have a RT or a specialty team of nurses or things like that. But here it would be EMTs and then paramedics. So, you know, when you do, people call out, kids get sick, stuff happens. I mean, we have to fill that with overtime. That's not just us. So it's the cost of readiness is the most expensive part of all our jobs.
So even when you hire new people, if they don't already come with that certification, there's a whole process that has to happen there, right?
Is.
I mean, you don't just go hire someone and they start working tomorrow.
No, they will apply if they're certified. So like our probably minimum level would be like a basic. So when they apply, they're already a basic. And then we do have programs where we send them and we'll pay for them to go to the training to get their EMT advanced. Or we send a lot of people through paramedic school that we sponsor and pay for. Kind of like hospitals do with certain positions. And the idea is that we get to retain them. We'll pay for your education, but in return, you know, you'll stay on for X number of years or whatever. So it's a benefit that we offer.
So the fire chief, Chief Courier, was actually telling me that he was talking to you the other night and he could hear a lot of noise in the background. He said, "Where are you at?" you were out actually helping run calls.
Yeah, we've been doing this now since the 29th of our operations people, our clinicians, we've embedded ourselves in, and I think when you acquire a group of a staff like we did, all well-qualified, great people, they don't know our operation. They were used to doing things one way, we do things a little different. Mm-hmm. So I think, we're not just, here's your memo, here's your book. I think we're gonna show you how to do it. Then we're gonna let you do it and be there while you do it. And then now you're gonna do it on your own. And I think for us, it's the very small, minute things. We really preach that. We have an unbelievable clinical staff and education department. So we can teach anybody to be a better paramedic, a better EMT. In fact, that's what they're doing right now in the training room. What we can't teach is if you're a bad person, bad character, bad attitude. It's really simple. Like we could paint it on this wall that says, just don't be a butthead. Like we can work with anything else. But if as you can tell, for 24 hours, sometimes with very little sleep, you're side by side with just me and you.
Yeah.
We don't have to be friends, but if you're just a bad person, constantly, whining and everything's wrong, and it starts to eat on people. So that's kind of what we try to hire for, is the type of person, a personality, a character. We can get your standard to where we want you to be, which is a very high level on the clinical side.
So I don't think you and I have ever talked about this, but my brother is an RN, and he used to, for 20 years, fly on one of the evac helicopters. Mm-hmm. And loved that job, but I remember him talking about how important it was because they all lived together. Yeah. And how important it was that you have good people because you're around them as much as you are your family, sometimes even more, and in very difficult situations.
Yeah, I mean, if you make a 25 or 30-year career out of EMS on 24-hour shifts or the fire department, I mean, you think you're living with a group of men and women a third of your life.
Yeah.
That's a third of your life. Most people leave, go to work at 8 o'clock, they're home by 5. They don't miss little Johnny or little Susie's ball game, and they don't, and they come home, hey, how was work? It was great, I think when people realize what, the public service and the fire, EMS, PD, the stuff they have to carry home with them is a big deal. And it's finally, we've kind of crested that hill, it seems like, over the last 4 or 5 years in our business and across the board in public safety of, the mental aspect of the job. And how do you prevent, because it takes one call to burn out a lifetime, for some people. You can train for a lot of things. You can't train for a 5-year-old in cardiac arrest. You can't train for, especially in a town like Enid that's very large and populated, a lot of people have lived here their whole life. So a lot of these people, and they do it regularly, they're pulling up to an address of someone they've known their whole life.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's that's a mental beat down on people. It's same with your police officers, same with your fire department, firefighters. So yeah, we're really pushing that a lot more.
Yeah, that mental awareness of how difficult it is on the employee and the families, I would think.
Yeah, just providing them that, hey, it's okay. You need to call a timeout, call a timeout. You need a mental break. I would put my leadership staff up against anybody, and they always beat me to the punch on calls weekly that are a pediatric arrest or something pretty horrible. They're already on it. They're like, why are you texting us? We've already been there. We're there. Hey, you good? Because we have people that are 22 here, and we have people that are 55. So, if you're a new mom or a new dad with a 2-year-old, and you go on a 2-year-old, you don't know how that's going to hit.
Yeah.
So, knowing that they can take that break, and that we're there to kind of help them through that. That's a big deal.
I want to back up a little bit and talk about why you ended up in Enid. We've had Jimmy Johnson with Life EMS, which Jimmy, longtime resident here, 50 plus years in this business, and we were very fortunate to have Jimmy for all those years. But you know, he was ready to.
As he
was ready to retire.
54 years is a long time.
That's a long time to be at one thing.
He's earned it, yeah.
And I say we were having trouble in our community. He had challenges like keeping staff and things like that so that we could have enough units to meet our population needs. And but what I found after we formed the committee and started really researching this isn't unique to Enid, Oklahoma, is it? I mean, it's across the board in the United States.
I can kind of give you a funny statistic. Since 2023, the actual level of number of certified people with, like, we call it the national registry. That would be for EMT or paramedic. So you get a national number when you become an EMT in this state, any state for that matter. So you're assigned. So there's one organization that keeps track of it. It has increased from 74,000 to 104,000. Oh, well, what's the problem? The actual amount of certified people that have increased, 65% of all EMS services in the United States have a 13% decrease in applicants. And what you're seeing is they're going from, hospitals are facing the same battle.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard for a private ambulance or even a county or municipal ambulance to compete with the large health systems. And by that, they're realizing that, hey, we want these paramedics to come in our ERs, go to these urgent cares. Well, what it does, it allows these guys, now they have more of an 8 to 5 job. They're getting paid a little better.
Yeah.
They're not seeing what they're having to see. They're going home at night, less stressful. Sometimes it works for them. Sometimes they come back because they realize, it's pretty boring. It's not, but you know, after going lights and sirens and doing all this crazy stuff on the side of the road to an ER, you know, sometimes they have a difficult, but so that's the reason staffing levels are down. I mean, across everywhere. Like I say, I think the last big survey they did across was 13%. That's a big number when it's already not a big number.
So a year ago, when we put the committee together to start studying this and what our community needed, I'll be honest, I went in there and I thought, well, if we don't have enough units to make all the calls, we need another unit or two, right? As we got into that and started trying to do all the metrics and trying to figure out where these employees come from and how we keep them staffed, the problems just got larger and larger. And fortunately, you came along, and that worked out real well, where Jimmy was wanting to sell his business, and you've got that background. But Chief Courier has helped, our fire chief has helped a lot on this to help me for sure understand. Tell us about that relationship, because it's important that you work with fire and work with the PD also, right?
That was the first relationship we established, was 6 months ago, was walking in his office, shaking hands, sitting down, because we've seen it, we've done it enough, how vital that relationship is. And I've also seen when fire and EMS don't get along, it affects patient outcome, it affects the city. It's this trickle down effect that you see across the board. So we wanted to establish that very quickly. Obviously, all that talk didn't matter until we were proving it. But the partnership that we've had with the City of Enid's fire department, unbelievable. Those guys are always, I don't say always, but there's 5 stations. They're staffed differently. They're going to beat us to a lot of calls because they're strategically located, as fire stations are throughout the city. So that matters. So a lot of times when, a citizen calls 911, the first person they're going to see is fire. And when we get on scene, and to have the partnership we've had and starting to do some cross-training and some very open communication, it's all about the patient outcome. It's all about the patient. Now, to us, we forget that the mom that's calling because her kid's having a seizure is probably the scariest, worst thing she will ever see in her life.
Yes, sir.
To us, it's like, it's the 10th one in a week. we've seen it. So you don't want to get callous to that. So you have to realize when you walk in there that that's the most important thing in that person's life ever. And that's where that partnership, and we've seen it. And, we've had the saves that we have documented in this town is a direct correlation that would not have happened without the fire and EMS relationship. And there's 4 people in January that, in essence, were dead, and 3 of the 4 are now at home, going on with their lives. The other one probably heading that way. We get so calloused in saying, you go ask any of the medics that we give these life-saving pins to, I'm just doing my job. Okay, you are, but it's like the fire guys, any of those firefighters over there. Man, you pulled that lady through the building? I'm just doing my job, Mayor.
Yeah.
Okay, but stop, process that. You walk into a scene, someone, they're not breathing, they don't have a pulse, they're clinically dead. I mean, they are. If you do nothing, they're not just gonna cough out of it.
That's right.
So to go through that process, and then you have our partnership, and then you have the partnership, it goes to the hospital, and now we work with them and they take over. Then you go to the floor and those doctors correct whatever it was, and now there's 3 people back at work.
That wouldn't have.
That's the part we want to start celebrating more. And I think you'll see that on our end here is celebrating that partnership and celebrating our wins when we live in a world now where it's just so easy to be like, fire kicked my door in, or took the ambulance an hour to get there. No, it didn't. It felt like an hour. Start putting the positive out, because it's really easy to blow your phone up going, Mr. Mayor, the so-and-so's just doing a bad job. So-and-so's doing a bad job. Like, I want more, whatever department it is.
Yeah.
Hey, will you thank these guys for me?
Absolutely. I want to go over a few of the stats that we talked about, but I don't want to go past the 4 lives that you were talking about, because that's important. That's important for people to understand. And I didn't understand how y'all measure that either. I thought first of all, that was in 30 days that you had 4 saves, what you call 4 saves. That's someone that when you roll up, they are clinically dead.
Yeah, they're doing CPR.
That's right.
Cardiac arrest.
That's right. I figured that you counted that from the time y'all got there until you pass it on to the next person, which would be the hospital in this case.
We look at that, and we do have stats on that to where we do have some form of return of circulation. So now that we're not performing CPR on them when we brought them to the hospital. So, okay, that's step 1. Now, some people they're going to die. I mean, that's the sad thing about it, because of their injury or their illness. I mean, some people just have the big one,
Yeah.
Some people have a bad enough trauma that no matter, even if they had it in the front door of a trauma center with 4 surgeons, they can't.
No.
But so we do measure that, because that is part of the job. But it all coincides with the partnership that I was talking about, with how every step matters, in making sure those partnerships and training are aligned. And it still comes down to the outcome of the patient. No one thinks about the ambulance, kind of like probably the fire or the police, until you're calling for one.
That's right.
Then you can't have enough of them. And why don't we have 30 of them? And why, Mr. Mayor? Because you never needed it.
And that 4, 5, 6 minutes does seem like an hour.
1,000.
I've been on that side. And but those 4 lives are counted the way y'all counted these, if I understand it right. They went home from the hospital.
They went home.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're back at their jobs, or they're back in their lives today, because we, and I love saying we, since I'm mayor, I get to inject myself in a lot of things that probably aren't mine, but because your team showed up, our fire department was already on site. We were able to get them transported to one of 2 great hospitals, and those people are still with their families today.
And I think you take that a level further in what you'll see that we do in other communities that we're going to start here, especially going into the summer, is the AEDs and the knowing what to do when your coworker at work, and knowing to get past that panic of early compressions, early shock, early defib. We don't have to blow in people's mouths you don't know and do all that stuff anymore. Why? Because 911, oh, there's a guy on the sidewalk, and okay, I want you to pinch his nose, open his mouth, and not a chance.
Yeah.
We skip all that now. It's getting the circulation going.
Sure.
A lot of places, if you're aware, you look around, there's big signs that say AED. AED, they're super easy to read. I mean, they made it to where almost the average kid's age could do it, because of the way it's color-coded. Put a patch here, touch the button, step back, it does everything for you. That's going to matter. It'll matter to me if I'm the one that goes
And I'm
into
seeing
full
those
arrest.
units a lot more than
They're
I
big
used
deals.
to.
And that's getting that out there to the public.
I do want to take some time and go over these stats because I was actually amazed by those. 459 calls in January.
That's 459 transports. So those are the ones that we measure for. Those are people that we actually went on and transported to the hospital. We responded to probably, I would say, right at 600 or over calls.
And I'm a stat guy. I love stats. You start dividing that out by the days and the hours. Boy, they are running all the time. You made the comment, we're having it back here in the garage area because up where you keep the other ambulances, they're so busy this morning that we just thought we'd lose our back.
Oh, yeah, they've already been out. I think 7 times in the last hour and a half, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that data is what we're going to use to develop our staffing model here. That data is going to allow, because it can be skewed, because I need 90 days to really put the data together. And the programs we have will tell us statistically what we're going on and when. Is it always going to play out? No, but you kind of have to follow that 80% spike in call volume between 8 a.m. and 10:35 a.m.
We talked about that, how those call
4:30 p.m. to, so it's not, this town never has enough ambulances. No, it would be suicide from a business to staff enough ambulances to where you always had one available right then, because I was amazed about how much of a cycle that follows. Yeah.
And very, very interesting. Another stat that I found very interesting was that not the cost of the unit, but to run a unit, put the staff in it, all the supplies, the gasoline, all those things, it costs you $400,000 a year per unit.
That's payroll only.
That's just payroll.
$403,000. I can get that within 4% of any ambulance we have. My CFO, Tia, is amazing when it comes to putting together the data and the finance, and if she puts it, and we know that because we run 45 of these other places that are staffed the same way. So that's payroll only.
Another stat that I found very interesting that I wrote down was 64% of all your calls are individuals over 74 years old. That's just here in Enid, right?
Yeah.
See, I was shocked by that too, that you go in, you look at all the calls that you've run, just how many of those are 74 years old and older.
And Enid has a lot of nursing homes.
Yeah.
So those are a lot of calls coming out of there too.
But what makes this interesting is you're only getting paid the Medicare amount because of the age, for the most part.
For calls like that, it would be more Medicare. Yeah, that's that's the reimbursement juggernaut of our business, not just Mercy's, but everybody's. And that's the battle we're all in right now. Is they did since you're on stats, the government put together a group in 2024 to do a cost study for Medicare and Medicaid on the average mean cost per transport for an ambulance in the nation. And they broke this up by geographic size and all that. And then what the average revenue was. So the average cost per call was $1,825. The average
$1,825
to run a call. The average reimbursement rate on those same calls was $975.
So you're losing money every single time.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
goes out.
it just becomes such a quantity deal.
Yes.
Obviously, if we were all just losing money at that rate, you couldn't survive. But the amount of ambulance services across the nation that didn't renew their Medicare license didn't. So that's how you can kind of see the decrease, because you get in this size bubble, you get too big, you can't compete. You stay too small, you don't have the volume to make up that difference. And that's where the collaboration between cities and services on what it costs to run a call and what it takes to provide the level of service that community needs versus what you can afford without anything.
So just a couple more questions. I know you're very busy today, but Duke, if I were to ask you, what do you foresee as the largest, most difficult challenge for your industry right here in Enid? What do you foresee there?
We don't need, there was a deal they put out and it was really true. And I don't think we need more paramedics. We need fewer calls. And by that is, how do we as a service start helping the community? I think if someone came and ran out or rode with this ambulance for 24 hours, you would be like, why? I felt like half the calls,
yeah.
You go talk to the hospital or the ER directors and they will show you 15 people in the waiting room that could probably have gone to their provider for that. So I think for me, it's modeling the staffing that's tiered to clinical outcome. They did I think it was 1.8 million calls that they studied, National NREMT did. Of that, only 6.9 was their actual potential life-saving intervention done on, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we get so focused on gotta have all the paramedics, we need that. I don't think it's hard in a town like this if we have both ALS ambulances on. My right toe's really been hurting me today. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we're tearing in that response time is a difficulty on, we need to start focusing as much on clinical outcome as we do response times, because at some point, I don't know if anybody wants us going 100 miles an hour to a guy with a hurt foot. But okay, now we got 3 ambulances out on a hurt foot. My back's just been a little tight. And guess what? And here's where the phone calls you're going to get from the citizens. My husband was having a heart attack in Walmart.
And couldn't get.
My child was choking at Chili's.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the call from you and a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't have no ambulances? I said, no, sir. We were here, here, and here. But here's the level of calls. So maybe looking at modeling, some type of tiered modeling on how we respond to calls and I think just because we've always done it one way doesn't make it right way now. I tell people all the time, well, then leave your cell phone at home, go buy a fax machine, go get a VHS tape. Hey, page me if you need something. Use a page. Well, why would I do that? Well, that's the way you're living. We don't, there's a reason dinosaurs died. Either you adapt or you die, so I think that we have that access. We have the technology. My company's made such a almost $1 million investment in the last 18 months that I can come to the council meeting and we can sit down with you and your team and go, well, I know what you think, but here's the true data. Like these ambulances, between the camera systems and the GPS and then all the markers we have and the Bluetooth, all this crazy stuff that I don't even know what I'm talking about, right? I can show that data now and it'd be like, well, here's why we don't need 4 ambulances all the time here.
Yes.
But here's why we need 4 in this time period. Is that going to bite us in the butt at least once? Of course. That's life,
So Duke, I'm gonna close with this. You're probably like me. You do get those negative calls a lot, right?
Yeah.
People forget to call when everything went really well. But that being said, I was approached by a lady the other day that had taken a ride over multiple rides over a couple of years. And she was talking about how just here recently, she didn't understand that we'd changed the company, didn't understand any of that, right? But she said, I have noticed how clean that ambulance was, and all the staff, all the employees were in uniforms and looked very professional. So I think you're making a difference.
Thank you.
Is what I'm saying, and I think it'll start showing up.
Yeah.
I know that you made the comment you're going to be getting out to a lot of to the hospitals and meeting with them, the schools, having all those conversations so that they understand what your business does. And I will just tell you that for myself and for the rest of the commissioners, and I never try to speak for the commissioners, but we are very happy that you're here. We're glad that you're making the investment in Enid. I think that by putting our committee together to study this topic, it was things that we didn't fully understand until you start really drilling down all the challenges that are there. And I'm a big believer. Anybody can point out problems, but you've got to find solutions. And I feel like we've started that, and we're glad that you're here. I'd love seeing the new decals and the clean vehicles on the outside too. So we're excited to see what comes next, and very glad that you chose to be on our program today and kind of tell what you guys were doing.
Yeah, Mayor, we're equally excited to be here. It's been a warm welcome. Once again, I think the nothing matters more until establishing the relationships we're doing, both from city administration, fire, PD, hospital. We're all working the same. And when you think about it and something bad happens in this town, all 5 departments are going, including you. Mr. Mayor, something terrible happened. It's a chain reaction, and we all are going for the same reason.
I made the comment during the State of the City address, and it's one of those deals when I'm putting that speech together, I just typed it down and I stopped, and I thought, man, that is a true statement right there. I made the statement that I feel like we have made more advances or accomplishments in this particular area over the last 12 months than the last 20 years.
Probably.
And it just excited me that we were really able to have an impact. And obviously you and your company are a huge part of that.
Yeah.
So glad you're here. I hope I keep seeing you around town a lot.
We will.
And with that being said, please don't forget to send in your questions to askmason@enid.org. I will do my very best to try to either explain what's going on, to understand your question. If I can't answer it, I will find someone out there that knows those answers, and just get back with you on that or have it on the show. Also, we'll never use your name. If you send in a question, we'll keep that we'll keep that to ourselves. So thank you for watching the show. Enjoy Enid and enjoy the rest of your week.